Well, hello there. I thought I'd show you some drawings from my many years of doodling in sketchbooks and things like that. I found that drawing, keeping a sketch pad like this in my backpack or wherever, and keeping it with me with some pencils and pens is always a great way to spend time by yourself. Um, and I don't know beyond that, what is the purpose? Why do we do this? I don't know. Maybe it's to buy stuff like pens. I found that even a cheap, 59-cent pen works great. But you can get like colored pens, but even these are not very expensive. Art supplies can be unbelievably expensive. Things like really good quality colored pencils can be very expensive. But as far as pencils, um, I've used just like a number two is great. Those little they used to call them mechanical pencils. I don't know what they call them anymore, but they have the lead in them. They make beautiful drawings. And I don't know if I have it in here. I did have it, but I can't find it. There's these, this one, yes. This is called an ebony pencil. It's very soft, buttery, but again, like cost $1 or something like that. I found that sometimes, like with colored pencils, better quality ones do produce better drawings because, again, they have a real soft, buttery thing. You can do blending and stuff, and the cheaper ones tend to be really hard and they don't work quite as well. But usually I use pen and pencil. I had Rapidograph pens, but I'm getting over COVID, so have a sip of tea. 2 weeks, I'm feeling better. It was very uncomfortable for a while. My nose just kept running constantly, and I had a terrible headache, and my stomach was upset, and I couldn't taste anything. I was going to say I lost my sense of taste, but I've never lost my sense of taste. Yeah, what else? Oh, and I slept. It was like I was drugged. I couldn't, and then it's like I feel better, and then it would come back, and I'd feel better, and it would come back. But it seems I'm going to survive. Anyway, back to drawings. So yeah, this is just a number 2 pencil. And it's kind of cool because as the paper gets, well, this is a really, this is probably 20 years old, and the paper starts to get this more, it gets an aged look to it. It's kind of nice. And a lot of times, like if I was sitting in a doctor's office, which I've done a lot in my life, I just pick up a magazine and sketch it, and that's probably where that's from. And then these are just pen, and again, this obviously from an opera magazine. I had very serious pain problems my entire life. Well, really, when I hit 38, something happened to me, and I've been to many, many doctors throughout my life. And sometimes I would draw what I was feeling. And it says, it's like an aching. Because you try to explain to doctors what you're feeling, and you do the best you can. But that was another reason I spent a lot of time drawing, is I spent a lot of time by myself. And then I would do these kind of, I don't know what you would call it, but this is done with these ebony pencils, and I would just, there's no plan to it. It's really just a doodle. So yeah, I'd be sitting in the doctor's office and waiting for tests, and then I had a partner that I had to drive everywhere because he didn't drive, and so I'd be waiting in the car, and I think we all spend a lot of time, I don't know, maybe not everybody, but I certainly have spent a lot of time by myself. Even when I was in a relationship, I felt very much by myself much of the time. I had dogs. I miss my dogs. But I noticed that in relationships, you can feel very by yourself, even though you're in a relationship, because the person is, living their life, and there's always that point in a relationship where you just, like, you've learned everything you possibly want to know about the person, but you still stay together. And so you maintain these personal spaces. So I've drawn my whole life, but there was a time where it became like really important to me, because you can get into a lot of trouble out there in the world. And by just sitting down and drawing, you're creating it seems like a safe space. And so yeah, sometimes I would just make things up. Sometimes there would be somebody just standing in front of me, and I would quickly sketch them. I remember this was at a arts and crafts fair in Tucson, bright sunny day. This was a guy in Tucson. And it's funny because you sit there and you've got your book and you're sketching and you're looking up occasionally, but the trick is to like look up without the person thinking you're staring at them, because then you're intruding on their space. And then, like, I'd start these doodles, and then another nice thing about drawing like this is then once it starts, I get lost in it, and it, time stops, and I just am in the drawing, and I'm going along, and I always thought that some of these would make really cool paintings. But that's a whole other thing. And also, the nice thing about drawing is that another doodle is you don't end up with a painting. Paintings are great, and I've certainly done hundreds, I don't know. But then you have a painting that you have to find a space for, whether it's on your own walls or storing them so that they can go to a store somewhere, or or a show somewhere, and lugging them here to there and like maintaining them. And so it's a whole other thing, whereas a drawing, you can just slip them in these little portfolios, and then after you die, somebody else has to deal with it. This is a Tab Hunter, and this is just a regular old number 2 pencil, just like that. And it's not really usually what you're using, it's how you use it. This is a really old, a long time ago, I would go door to door, basically, to stores and ask them if they needed any illustrations done. And I would show them. I'm trying to find something. I don't know if it's in here or not. But I would just show them like pen and ink sketches I've done. And sometimes they needed menus with illustrations on them. And so that's what I was trying to find, but I'm not finding any in here. But, I would just show them that I was skilled enough to do it. But I would draw, I'd also do like illustrations for realtors, where I'd go to the house that was for sale, and I would sketch the house in pen and ink, make these very pretty little drawings of the house in pen and ink, which they would put on the brochure. I was also very into using sumi-e, is that how you pronounce it? Fish. But using little sketchbooks like this, one time I went into a place that did productions for like Las Vegas shows, and they needed somebody to paint sets, and I walked in with just my little portfolio of drawings, just a few samples, and they hired me on the spot, so that was kind of cool. And that's how we did it back then. I mean, you basically went door to door with your art and said, do you need any art? You need a mural, you need menus, you need any illustrations. And they would say, well, can you draw? Can you paint? And so you had to just go, yes, I can, see? And it's so different today. Today we use this machine, and I want to see a picture of me when this is my graduation picture. I was wearing a green blazer, very edgy. Today, we have the algorithm, and I have looked into how to boost this channel. I've watched videos on how to increase, your audience, and I've done it all. I've changed every dynamic I possibly could, and none of it changed how many people watched this YouTube channel. And nobody ever, well, occasionally I'll get like 1 or 2 comments. Just never happens. So, I've read about why that can happen, and there's like conspiracies that you belong to some certain subgroup that the algorithm doesn't like. And I think that there are 10 hours of videos uploaded every minute onto YouTube. So it's like, it's like spitting in the ocean. The chances of anybody, seeing this are just astronomically small. So I decided that I would take a very enlightened approach, and that would be that the fewer people who saw my videos was actually better, because then only good quality people will see my videos. That's my theory. This is it's pencil and pen and ink, and it's very sentimental. This was my friend Lee's house, and I was sitting in this room here, and that was her kitchen. It was just the coolest house. It was like in Bisbee, up in this canyon, and the very end you had to go up a trail to get to it, and it was just this funky little house, but just really cool. And it was set against the hillside there, really, really pretty, and yeah, really sweet place. There's a concept in there, or an idea, or I don't know, an image in Mexico called King Death, and yeah, we certainly have learned a lot about that recently, haven't we? And then I was sitting waiting for my partner. He was in this drumming group, and I spent a lot of time waiting. Did you ever notice that in relationships, you spend a lot of time waiting for that person? Well, anyway, I would sketch what was in front of me, and this is just some corner in Tucson. And then I would do like cartoons as well. I had dogs, and every time you go out and somebody had some, attack dog, like a pit bull or German Shepherd, and they would always say, "It's fine. He won't hurt anybody." Meanwhile, the dog is just like freaking out, barking, and yeah, I don't like that. I've been attacked 3 times by dogs, large dogs. And then I had a dream about this. Sometimes I'd have these very elaborate but distinct, I can remember them later. So that's another fun thing to do when you're drawing, is drawing doesn't have to be just one thing. That's another thing, is that people kind of get stuck on, like, I have to be, you know, a realistic portrait drawer, artist, and or I have to do abstracts or landscapes or whatever. You can do all of it if you want. And that's a really nice thing about these sketchbooks, is that these are cheap, and with a pencil you can try all sorts of different things. So this is a charcoal. I don't have my charcoal drawings. They were too big and they're too fussy, and I couldn't move them with me. But I found I was really good at charcoal, and I think I may do more of them. It's a very free sort of thing, and then you can like smudge. What I used to do with charcoals, and I don't know if that's, no. Anyway, I lived way out in a rural area, and there were forests all around, and I would find campfires, and I would find the charcoal in the bottom of the campfires, and I would use that to make drawings. They were so beautiful. The quality of that, it would like crumble, and yeah, try it sometime. This was a person in that drumming group. I was really getting into drawing musicians, and the thing is when you're drawing a musician, they're moving, and so it's difficult to capture them. So what I did was I started to incorporate the movement into the drawing. This woman was giving a lecture, and I forget her name, but it was, she worked in the Bush administration, and I was sketching her while she was talking. Let's see what else we got here. And it's just pen and ink. And I tried to do like humorous sketches and sketches that might be used in magazines. But I was never very successful at that. There was these books called like Artist Market and things like that. You know, and you'd make endless copies and mail lots of mailings out to different companies, and usually I never even heard back from them. So it was really a waste. So let's see. And then this one is actually a watercolor. And I've tried to do fantasy art as well, but I don't think I'm very good at it. It doesn't have, I think I would go in and make it darker, more moody. So, oh yeah, so these are more of my drawings of while people are playing music. And some of these people have, after they're done playing, I show it to them and they've used them on albums and posters and things like that. So yeah, and that's another thing, if you're like sitting in a cafe or something and you, a lot of times I would sit and just draw the people around me. It's kind of fun. This is just a regular number 2 pencil. That's colored pencil, and it's, I can't think of the name of those colored pencils. The better quality ones. Anyway, colored pencils are really fun. I think it's one of my more favorite types of art supply. You can really just blend beautifully because the more you rub on, there's like a wax in them and they start to blend together beautifully. But then there's pen and ink, and this was done with a rapidograph pen, and I have to admit they're just beautiful instruments. They're just a pain to take care of, and this is very surrealistic, so prepare yourself. And what's really interesting about this is that it's on this paper that's made out of plastic, and that's watercolor. The color there is watercolor and pen and ink, and but the paper is plastic. You can, if you were to feel it, it feels just like a thin sheet of plastic. But they made it so that you can use it for watercolor. So anyway, just bizarre. Surrealism is fun, but scary. What goes on in our minds. This is, again, this rapidograph, and you get these very thin lines, a lot of control. And again, this was like, I'm trying to be humorous and send it off to magazines. Never worked. Not even once. I must have sent out hundreds of them. I just did these yesterday. This is actually pencil and watercolor. Another one in here. This one does not want to come out. There we go. And it's on watercolor paper. Watercolor is like, I think it's a very steep learning curve, but once you get it, it's very easy to do. I know people have a lot of difficulty with it, but I find that it's not as difficult as it seems once you understand that it's sort of reverse of using regular paint like acrylics or oils or anything like that. Okay, more weird drawings. I also approached like tattoo shops, you know, but didn't have any luck there either. Because most tattoo artists are artists and they can do their own art. I did this one last week. It's really bad. I gave up on it. I don't know. I don't think I'm a very good fantasy artist. I like these sorts of things where it's very free and I can just doodle up some stuff, some characters. Okay, so this is completely different altogether. And what I found was that I don't think I'm very good at fantasy with paper and pen and ink or whatever, watercolor. But I found that I was really good at it on the computer, using computer graphic software. And so I started making things like this. And there's a long story behind these, and that's another video altogether. And here's a couple more. And these were in a show in Bisbee. And maybe I'll do a video about that show because it's a long story. And this is charcoal, and I do think I excel at charcoals. There's just a really wonderful quality to that material. And that's another nice thing about drawing, is that you can try all sorts of different things. You can try pens, pen and ink, you know, little bottles of ink. You know, these can be really fun. There's these old style pens. These are called crow quill pens, and a bunch of them in here. I don't use these very much though. Oh, one more. So we're at, yeah, one more. I have another one. I'll do another video. There was another section to this, but I think I lost it somewhere. Fantasy art. So yeah, if you're stuck in the house and you're bored go get a pencil and paper and have some fun.